Benvinguts, welcome back to a new Knighthood. In the last two episodes we surveyed some of the realms of Europe around the year 1100, looking at France and Iberia. Now we turn to a man who lived in that world and tested himself on the defining venture of his age, the First Crusade. Raymond of Saint-Gilles, Count of Toulouse, was the first great lord to take the cross and brought the largest army to the east. Over 3 episodes we will follow him from Toulouse to a hill outside Tripoli where he died. We begin with the making of his authority and with the man who attempted to take it from him. But before we begin, if these episodes are useful to you, please like, subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments. In the summer of 1098 the Crusade held Antioch and 2 men quarrelled over it. One of them had on his side an oath, the agreement almost every Crusade leader had sworn, and the friendship of the Byzantine emperor. The other simply held the walls. The man with the walls kept the city. The former was Raymond of Saint-Gilles. The Byzantine princess Komnene called him the finest of all the Latins. By Latins she meant the inhabitants of the successor realms of the Western Roman Empire. In general, the educated, cultured and Greek-speaking Byzantines did not flatter Latins. Our first episode will end with Antioch lost and a holy relic in Raimon's hands. But we begin in the south of France. Raimon ruled the County of Toulouse, being the 4th count to bear his name. Toulouse was a part of the Occitan south, a culture already distinct from northern France. This was where the troubadour art was being born. Guillaume of Occitan, the first troubadour we can name, was composing in these very years, and the Occitan courts would come to prize poetry, music and refined rhetoric. Out of this world would come the ideal the south would later call parade, a worth that had to be proved through action, not merely claimed by birth. They also valued prowess tested through ordeal. Raimon was among the men who embodied those values before they had their names. The lords of this world were not only warriors, they were patrons of culture, participants in debates about love and honor, men who valued eloquence as much as the sword. Raimon embodied this. He was educated and sophisticated, as capable of diplomacy and patronage as of warfare. In 1094 he married Elvira, illegitimate daughter of Alfonso VI of Castilla y León. This was no mere marriage, it bound him to the most powerful Christian house on the Iberian frontier. Alfonso had taken Toledo in 1085 and ruled it with much of its Muslim and Jewish population in place. His reign turned on exactly the things a crusade would demand, not quick raids but long sieges, the governing of conquered cities, and the rule of people who did not share his faith. Later writers say Raimon had campaigned in Iberia himself, and it is possible, though the firm evidence is thin. In these very years the Iberian frontier was hardening and drew in actors from outside. The Almoravids had crossed from North Africa in 1086, and both sides of the conflict were increasingly using the language of holy war. In 1095 Raimon was probably 53 or 54. His life had offered him every privilege: the County of Toulouse, vast territories, wealth and reputation. But he was looking for something larger, a true test of his worth. He would soon find it. On the 27th of November 1095, after an intense 10-day church council, Pope Urban II stood before a crowd at Clermont in the Auvergne. In his speech he called for an armed pilgrimage to Jerusalem. We do not have his exact words, the accounts vary, but the core message is clear. Christians in the East were suffering, the holy places were in the hands of Muslim unbelievers, and the Byzantine Empire had asked for help. Those who took the cross, known henceforth as Cruces Ignati, would receive the remission of sins, protection of their property while on crusade, and the promise of paradise to any who died in the attempt. Urban was ingeniously directing the energies of a quarrelsome warrior nobility towards a single point. The crowd's response was immediate. "Deus vult," they cried, "God wills it," and the cry became the battle cry of the crusade itself. Across France, lords and knights became cruces signati, marked with the cross. Raymond of Saint-Gilles was the first great lord to take the cross. His motives? He was deeply pious and had become familiar with the armed conflict between faiths through his Castilian marriage. Also, he had been excommunicated twice over prior marriages. Although he had been reconciled with the church, he might have felt the need for spiritual redemption. He probably also knew, as other French nobles did not, that Muslim cities were not only to be conquered but to be governed, and the venture offered the ultimate test of knightly virtue, prowess through ordeal. Can we separate his piety from his ambition? Raimon himself probably did not. For a lord of his world, serving God and seeking glory were not opposites. They were aspects of a single pursuit of excellence. Raimon's army, which was larger than any other leader's, set out in October 1096. He brought his wife Elvira, his infant son who would die on the journey, and the treasury of Toulouse. He left his elder son Bertrand from his first marriage behind to govern in his absence. He also brought the chaplain who would chronicle the campaign, Raymond of Aguilera. We know a lot about what follows because the Count's own priest wrote it down. The decision to bring Elvira and his young son is striking. This was no brief campaign. Raymond was old for a crusader at 55, when most were in their 20s and 30s. He had made his peace with dying far from home, and he was right. He would never see Toulouse again, the county he had ruled, the culture he embodied, the lands that gave him his power. He committed absolutely to the crusade. The march ran through northern Italy into the Balkans, and it was punishing. Down the Dalmatian coast in winter and through Sclavonia, meaning the Kingdom of Croatia, where the army was harassed by local troops. When they passed into imperial territory, Byzantine soldiers shadowed the column and skirmished with it on several occasions. A group of Pecheneck mercenaries, horse nomads living on the Byzantine frontier, robbed and very nearly killed Adamant Lepuy, the papal legate himself. Raimon, possibly left one-eyed from an encounter earlier in life, endured what younger men could not. His leadership and wealth held the army together when hunger set in, but it arrived battered at the Bosporus. Finally at Constantinople, gateway to the east and rendezvous point of the various crusader contingents, Raimon met the Byzantine Emperor Alexius Komnenos. Alexius required the crusade leaders to swear oaths, promising to return any Byzantine territory they recovered. Most complied, swearing oaths of fealty. Raimon, however, refused. Raymond of Aguilera records the answer. The Count replied that he had not come hither to make another his lord, or to fight for any other than the one for whom he had left his country and his possessions. In Raimon's mind, his fealty was already given to a higher power, that of Jesus Christ. Pressed again for homage, he answered that he would not do it, even at the risk of his head. The Emperor, Aguilera notes, gave him a few gifts. Instead, Raimon swore an oath of friendship, a promise not to harm the Emperor's life or honor, and an offer of support against the Emperor's enemies, particularly the Sicilian Normans. These Normans are important for the rest of the story. A single generation of landless adventurers from Normandy had conquered Apulia, Calabria, and Sicily from Greeks and Arabs alike. Their late Duke Robagiscar, the Cunning, had spent his last years trying to conquer the Byzantine Empire itself. Alexius had fought him in the Western Balkans. Now Giscar's son, Bohemond of Taranto, had come east as one of the leaders of the crusade. Raimon swore to stand with the emperor against exactly that family, the Ordeals. It was an alliance between equals, not subordination, and Raimon honored it. When others later broke their oaths and kept what they had taken, he tried to return it. The oath he had refused to swear he kept better than those who swore and broke theirs. Because of this, Alexiad valued him above the rest. The emperor's own daughter, the princess Anna Komnene, wrote of him. She calls him Isangeles, which is a Greek approximation of Saint-Gilles. Isangeles he liked especially because of his superior wisdom and genuine sincerity and purity of life, also because he recognized that he valued truth above everything, for he shone amidst all the Latins as the sun amidst the stars of heaven. This is high praise indeed, as the Byzantines generally regarded the Latins as barbarians. Raimon was different, and the difference lay in his integrity. Alexiad kept him close. When the other crusade leaders had crossed into Asia Minor, Anna tells us, her father sent for Raimon repeatedly. He told him what he expected the crusaders to do, and opened, so to say, the doors of his soul to him. Then he asked him for something. He asked him to watch Bohemond, Guiscard's son, and to stop him if he moved to break his oath. Raimon answered, and it's the only place outside his own chaplain's book where we hear the man speak. Bohemond has acquired perjury and treachery as a species of ancestral heritage, and it would be a miracle if he kept his oath. However, I will endeavour as far as in me lies, always to carry out your orders. Raimon, as it would turn out, would soon be right about Bohemond. In October of 1097, after taking the city of Nicaea for the Byzantines, fighting the Seljuk Turks at Dorylaeum, and enduring many hardships on the march through Anatolia, the army came to Antioch in the northern Levant. The siege of this crucial city would last 8 long months. Antioch was not a city an army could rush. It sat on the Orontes River with its walls climbing the slope of Mount Silpius to a citadel 300 meters above the streets, some 6.5 kilometers of Byzantine stonework studded with 400 towers, too vast for the Crusaders to fully encircle. So they did not storm it, but sat down around its gates, effecting a blockade. Raimon held one of the blockading forts. Through the winter of 1097, he beat off the sorties against his lines. That winter was a true nightmare. The army starved in the rain outside walls it could not breach. Men ate their horses, and then worse. They started deserting in the night, while disease moved through the camp. When Antioch finally fell on the night between the 2nd and 3rd of June 1098, it fell not to assault but to treachery. A disgruntled Antiochene guard captain named Firouz was bribed to lead Bohemond's men over the walls in the dark. Then on the cusp of victory, the crusade was nearly completely destroyed. With the majority of the city finally in their hands, the Crusaders were besieged in turn by a great Muslim relief force under Kerboga, the Seljuk ruler of Mosul. They were starving, with the citadel above them still in enemy hands. It is here that the strangest episode of Raimon's life took place. A poor Provençal pilgrim named Peter Bartholomew came to him. He claimed that St. Andrew had appeared to him and shown him where the lance that had pierced the side of Christ lay buried beneath the Antioch cathedral floor. Ademar-le-Puy, the Crusade's papal legate, thought it nothing but words. But Raimon believed. He took Bartholomew into his household under his chaplain's guard. When they dug, on the 14th of June, the Count was down in the pit himself, though he was called away to guard the besieged citadel. His chaplain stayed, and records that he himself kissed the point of the Holy Lance as it broke the earth. According to Peter Bartholomew, St. Andrew had decreed that the lance was to be given to Count Raimon from the start. And 2 nights after it came out of the ground, the saint returned to the visionary, his words recorded by Aguilera. "Behold, God has given to the Count that which he never wished to give to anyone, and has made him the standard-bearer of this army, as long as he shall continue in his love." Whatever exactly was in that hole, it worked. Inspired by the lance carried into battle by Aguilera, the starving army marched out and broke Kerboga's army on the 28th of June, Raimon now seemed to carry the visible favour of God. Immediately after, however, the quarrels began. The city's citadel surrendered personally to Bohemond, who then claimed Antioch for himself. Raimon protested. The other crusade leaders had sworn to return Byzantine territory, and Antioch was historically Byzantine, so it should go back. Bohemond refused, giving the reason that Alexiad had failed to aid in the siege, making the oath null and void. The other crusade leaders did little to oppose the Norman. They were tired, far from home, and Bohemond held the walls. Raimon stood almost alone in honouring their, not his, oath to the emperor. As a consequence of this, he and Bohemond would remain rivals for the rest of Raimond's life. Everything that follows happens in the shadow of this rivalry. So there stood Raymond of Saint-Gilles in the summer of 1098, 57 years old, 2 years from home, and by every measure one of the outstanding men of the Crusade. He had brought the largest army, he had refused to kneel, and had kept his word better than the men who knelt. The Emperor of the Byzantines prized him above every other Latin, and God's own lance, if you believe the visions, had been granted to him and no one else. Yet he had little except the lance to show for his efforts. He had lost a son, presumably on the grueling march. Antioch was Bohemond's, who had sworn to give it back and simply kept it. When Raimon stood on the letter of the oath, the other leaders looked at the man who held the walls and decided they would rather not quarrel with him. Raimon was in the right, but being in the right turned out to be something no one in the Crusader camp would shed blood for. So Bohemond kept Antioch. What Raimon still had was the lance, a clear sign of the favour of God. The vision of St. Andrew had put a clear condition on it, however. Standard bearer of this army, the message ran, as long as he shall continue in his love. We will see if Raimon can keep this pact in part 2 of the story. Here's where the history turns personal. Two men wanted to determine the future of Antioch. In Robert Elmore's language, Bohemond was running the tyrant, warrior force with the service stripped out of it, seizing because he could and calling the seizure his right. Raimon was running the sovereign, authority that rests on legitimacy, on oaths kept, on being owed. And the sovereign lost because legitimacy is not self-enforcing. It is worth precisely what the people around you are willing to make it worth. Raimon turned to a poor man's vision, a relic the papal legate dismissed, and made it the ground of his authority. He believed it, his chaplain believed it, and it worked. The army marched out on the strength of it and broke Kerboga. The count who would soon lose the city came to carry the visible favour of God, in the minds of those who believed at least. More calls that energy the magician, the one who sees, who knows, who uses understanding to transform a situation. One shadow is the detached manipulator, who turns the same sight to his own advantage. And here's what should trouble you. The difference between them is not sincerity. By all accounts, Raimon meant it. The manipulator does not have to be a cynic. He only has to notice that what he truly believes is also, conveniently, what serves him, and then never ask which of the two came first. So here's your work. Find a belief of yours that happens to serve you, not a lie, a real conviction, honestly held, that also happens to justify your position, your grievance, or your authority over someone. Everyone has one. Then ask the legate's question, the one Adhemar asked about the lance. What if this is nothing but words? An authority you're not allowed to question is not just an authority. It's a relic you're afraid to give up. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe, which also, very usefully, happens to be on your side? See you, and thank you for watching.